administration of this great community. And we ask these favors and blessings in thine holy name, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. If you'll stand, if you have a flag to look at for the Pledge of Allegiance. And repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll make note that Commissioners Lunt and Arner are excused tonight. Everybody else is in attendance. Item number 2 are minutes consideration and action to approve the July 15th, 2020 joint meeting with City Council and Planning Commission minutes. Is there any discussion or corrections that need to happen?
I read through those and I would propose that we approve those meeting minutes. This was Brandon.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Our opening meeting statement tonight.
Eric, you're a little hard to hear. I don't know if anybody else is.
I might. Oh.
Just a little, is it? Is anyone else experiencing that?
Yes,
He's
he's
a
slightly
little-
muffled.
Little quiet.
I mean, it's okay. It's just, I don't know. We're getting that well.
Let me adjust what I'm speaking through.
Is that better? Is this better?
Much better.
Okay. We will, Rob, you want to go ahead with the meeting statement?
Thank you, Chair, Planning Commissioners, and audience. I'm going to explain the process that the Planning Commission will use in making decisions and the rules that govern the agenda items or hearings. The Planning Commission is interested in receiving public input and treating everyone fairly, that is, both interested parties and applicants. The Planning Commission is governed by Utah state law and the North Ogden City zoning and subdivision regulations. These codes contain criteria that the Planning Commission must follow in making its decisions. Before each agenda item begins, city staff will give a report. The report will identify whether the item is an administrative or a legislative item and list the criteria that govern the city's decision. After the staff report, the applicant will speak first. Following the applicant, audience participants will be recognized by the chair to make comments or ask questions. The applicant has final rebuttal time. Applicants or their agents will be allowed up to 10 minutes for their initial presentation and 5 minutes for rebuttal time. Persons speaking for a committee and or board will be given 5 minutes. All other individuals will be entitled to 3 minutes. Prior to speaking, anyone who needs more time to present evidence must ask for more time. If you wish to be recognized on the computer, there's a raise your hand button and you will be recognized and be able to address the commission. Any information, argument, or evidence you give must relate to the criteria listed in the staff report or other criteria in the general plan or land use regulations that you believe apply to the decision. Any materials that are displayed or referenced, for example, pictures or written materials, are part of the record and must be sent to the commission. The Planning Commission has adopted rules regarding outside contacts, otherwise known as ex parte communications. Commissioners are not to engage in communications outside of the public meeting regarding administrative applications. If you desire to speak to commissioners on these matters, it should be done at a regular meeting so your comments, concerns, and evidence are on the public record. And finally, we just remind everybody that once you're recognized to unmute, but otherwise to maintain mute will help to maintain order. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Rob. Item 4, ex parte communications or conflicts. Does any commissioners have conflicts of interest on the agenda tonight? Or communications that need to be disclosed?
And I tried. I reached out to Mr. Carson Jones, who's on the agenda, about some land he was developing just as a personal thing, and he never called me back, despite leaving him 2 voicemails. So I do not have a conflict of interest.
So now it's really personal, Brandon.
Yeah. It sounds like it's personal now.
It's not personal. Also, as a way of update, I no longer have a conflict of interest on the Pheasant Landing subdivision either. I have no conflicts of interest, but I've tried to get some.
Well, good.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll open up for public comments for any attendees tonight that are would like to speak to the Planning Commission. There's something not on the agenda. We'll open up for items on the agenda as we come across them. Any public, please raise your hand and we'll let you communicate.
Carson Jones would like to say something.
I bet he would.
Go ahead, Carson.
Hey, Brandon, I apologize. If you have reached out to me and I have not responded, I have not seen any communication. So I more than apologize for that.
Well, my
You
money's
just
gone
lost
now,
a lot,
so
Sal.
it's water under the bridge.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
No, that's all.
Okay. Let's move on. Item number 6, Subdivision Ordinance 2017-14. Consideration and action to approve an extension for the final approval of the Ward Farms Subdivision Phase 3, located at 1850 North, 925 East, 22 lots. Rob?
Commissioners, the applicant is requesting the extension of their final approval for Phase 3 of Ward Farms. This is a 22 lot subdivision. The final approval was to expire July 31st, 2020. There are no changes to the application or subdivision design. All conditions of approval would remain in effect. And therefore we recommend that the Planning Commission grant your extension to July 31st, 2021 for the Ward Farms Phase 3 subdivision. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay. Pretty straightforward. Does any commissioners have any issues with this, or just entertain a motion?
I do have a question. I was thinking about this one. What would be a condition to not approve one?
So if, for example, if there was a code change, or if they made a modification to their design that was significant enough that it would require further review, it would be those types of things.
Okay.
I guess if the city were really wanting that area developed quickly for some reason, right? Which I don't see any reason. I see no reason to not approve this. Therefore, I recommend approving the motion.
Okay.
All right, motion that we approve it. How about that?
We got a motion to approve the 1-year extension. A second?
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I think we can just do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. That extension will go on for 1 year. Item number 7, Subdivision Ordinance 2019-6. Discussion and action regarding the Qual Pond Subdivision, Phase 5, final approval, located at approximately 825 East, 2000 North, 6-lot subdivision. Presenter is Brandon Bell. Brandon?
Good evening, Commission. So this, again, is Phase 5 of Qual Pond subdivision. It's approximately 1.3 acres. That's in the Qual Ponds PRUD zone. see, I'll go ahead and read the, sorry, 1 second, need to pull up the right document. The decision statement. So this is our first detailed staff report. That's an administrative item. When the Planning Commission is acting as a land use authority, it is acting in an administrative capacity and has limited discretion. Examples of administrative applications are conditional use permits, design reviews, and subdivisions. Administrative applications must be approved by the Planning Commission if the application demonstrates compliance with the approval criteria. The there. It looks like there's a mistake in my staff report. It states that they're requesting preliminary approval, and they're actually requesting final approval. There's 6 lots in the subdivision, and the minimum lot size for this subdivision is 4,290 square feet on all lots, with a frontage requirement of 55 feet in width. The property is currently vacant. The city engineer submitted a report dated July 29th, 2020 that identifies items that needed to be addressed before final approval. All of those are listed as complete. And the TRC meeting notes from the previous phase were determined to be sufficient to be applicable to this phase of the subdivision. The staff has verified that all lots on the proposed subdivision meet the lot square footage requirements. However, there are 2 lots that show the lot width at 30 feet from the front lot line. And that was on a previous version of the plat. I worked with the applicant from the time that I completed the report to till now to get a new updated version of the plat. And Lynn, 1 second. Could you pull up that version of the plat and we'll take a look at that real quick. And then if you could zoom in a little bit. Okay, so this should be, if you could just zoom in just a little bit more. Thanks. Thank you, Lynn. So this is the updated version of the plat. You'll see that these lots on the eastern edge, lot 48 through 51, are they were adjusted somewhat from the version that you were provided last week in order to make sure that they all met the 55-foot lot width requirement. You'll notice that all of them are 55 feet or greater. We clarified that the lot width needed to be applicable at the 18-foot setback, which is unique to this zone, as opposed to 30 feet, which is typical in most of our zones. So with this new plat, the applicants met the lot width requirement. And if the commission decides to make a motion to approve the plat, staff would suggest that you make clear that you're approving this updated plat with the adjusted lot lines that meet the 55-foot lot width standard at the 18-foot setback. On a related note, as building permits are prepared for these lots, the applicant should be aware that the maximum lot coverage percentage on a lot by buildings that is permitted for this zone is 45% of the lot, with the vegetative area on each lot being required to be 40%. So that there's only an additional 10% that's available for other things after the 45% building lot coverage. The considerations for the Planning Commission would be, does the proposed subdivision meet the requirements of applicable city subdivision and zoning ordinances? And does it meet the goals of the general plan? Staff views that it conforms to the requirements of the general plan, and the general plan calls for this to be low density residential. The recommended conditions of approval are requirements of the North Ogden City Engineers Report, the requirements of the Technical Review Committee notes, and some lot lines. And then the final recommended condition of approval is to be 48 to, that one was addressed with the updated plat. Let's see, so staff recommends final approval of the Qual subdivision phase 5, subject to the conditions recommended in the staff report, the engineer's report, and the technical review committee notes. Does the commission have any questions for me at this time on this subdivision?
I do. It sounds like you guys reviewed this in a meeting I did not attend, but we're in the R110 zone, right?
No, it's in, this is the Quail Ponds PRUD zone.
PRUD. Oh, okay. I must be looking at, oh yeah, I'm looking at the Northampton. Sorry. Forgive me. So then I do not have a question.
Okay.
Okay. If there's no other questions from the commissioners, we'd invite Carson up if you have anything to address, Carson.
Well, first off, I'd like to say, Brandon, you look fantastic in your beard. So I want to get that on the record. Second off, yeah, this is pretty cut and dry. Just another phase of what we've been doing for the last 20 years. We did have that little change that we had to do. We messed up and put 55 feet at 30 feet back instead of 18 feet back. And we have since addressed that issue. But other than that, it's just more of the same. I think this is pretty much follows the plan that we had laid out in the inception of Quail Ponds. And we do plan on continuing and finishing the project.
Okay. Do any commissioners have any questions for Carson? If not, any other discussion from the commissioners? Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we grant final approval of the Quail Pond Subdivision Phase 5, subject to the conditions recommended in the staff report, the engineer's report, and the technical review committee, including the updated plat with a lot width standard measured at the 18-foot setback.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right. Commissioner Waite,
Yes.
Commissioner Nancaro,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right. Item number 8, subdivision ordinance 2019-14. Discussion and action regarding the Northampton subdivision, phase 8 final approval, located at approximately 2650 north, 1350 east. 9 lots in total. Presenter is Brandon Bell. Brandon?
Thank you, Chair Mason.
That's your calling, Brandon. You see that?
You're welcome.
Or Thomas.
Okay, so again, this is 9 lots. It's at about 2650 north and 1350 east. Just kind of to respond to Commissioner Mason, he said this must have been reviewed in a prior meeting, and that's definitely accurate. The preliminary approval on this was actually granted about 4 years ago, I believe, and sometime in 2016. What happened at that time was there was a larger version of phase 7 that was granted preliminary approval, and the applicant decided to only seek final approval on a portion of the subdivision and condense the size of phase 7 down to a smaller number of lots and property, and ended up getting final approval on that other portion to the west of this and a little bit to the north, and then has waited until now to get final approval. And so if you don't remember the preliminary approval, that would be why. The property again is in the R110 zone. It's situated on 4.21 acres of land. The minimum lot size for this zone is 10,000 square feet on all interior lots with a frontage requirement of 90 feet. For corner lots in the R110 zone, the required square footage is 11,000 square feet. Let's see. We have a will serve letter for sewer service, secondary water, and geotechnical report for this subdivision. A note needs to be placed on the plat referencing the company, the report number, and the date of that report. And then on a technical note, there's a small corner of this subdivision that goes out to, I think it's 2600 north, that overlaps with another subdivision. It's a very small radius of the road, and the applicant just needs to check with the Weber County Recorder's Office regarding that radius. If they're okay with it remaining on the plat and overlapping with the other subdivision, then they can leave it on. And if the Recorder's Office will not allow it to remain, then the applicant will need to take the radius off the plat. And if that were the case, the property owner will need to provide an easement to allow for any sidewalk in any portion of the road that is located on their property. The labels lot 901 and lot 902 should be removed from the plat. Any property that is left over from the parcels being subdivided in this area need to be relabeled as a remainder parcel, so as not to construe them having received approval as building lots. Regarding stormwater detention, the applicant has completed an agreement with North Ogden City to allow stormwater from this subdivision to be retained at a facility owned by the city that is off-site. And then, Lynn, if you could pull up the version of the plat, that would be great. The final issue that I have is that we have a provision in our subdivision ordinance that states that the developer of a subdivision is required to furnish and install a fence not less than 6 feet in height as part of the approval of a subdivision, according to certain requirements. One of those is where a subdivision borders an existing open canal or irrigation ditch, which this subdivision does. There's a canal to the east. And one of the requirements of putting in that fence is that a note should be required on the plat indicating where it was required by the Planning Commission and the basic characteristics of the fence. The ordinance also allows for this requirement to be interpreted broadly if it furthers the purpose of creating a more effective barrier between a subdivision and a safety hazard or an incompatible land use. So staff recommends that a 6 foot tall fence that's either solid board, chain link, wrought iron, or another solid material based on the standard in the ordinance needs to be required due to this ordinance in place. And that fence, the requirement for that fence would apply. We recommend that it apply at the rear property lines of lots 801, 802, 803, and 804 as those properties border the canal. Staff also recommends that the fence be in place prior to certificates of occupancy being issued for any homes in the subdivision. And then staff is also the opinion that it may be easiest and best to add the fence a few more feet all the way to Mountain Road. And a note needs to be placed on the plat stating where the fence was required and the required height of 6 feet. The fence should be solid material and the material used. So you can see with lots 801, 802, 803, and 804, this is on the east side of their property lines is where staff believes the ordinance applies, that the fence should be required. And then we also just recommend that there's a small portion of the property that's labeled lot 901, but that needs to be relabeled along that eastern property line, that we recommend that fence go all the way to Mountain Road, just because to help further the point of this, preventing a safety hazard with that lot. Let's see. Fine. I guess there's one other minor issue. Staff recommends that the 10-foot utility easements that are along the rear of lots 805, 806, 807, 808, and 809, and the sides of 801, 804, 805, and 809 be removed. as noted in the staff report. I've pretty much covered the conditions of approval already. They're just restated at the bottom of the report. So staff recommends final approval of the Northampton Estates subdivision Phase 8, subject to the conditions recommended in the staff report, the engineer's report, and the technical review committee letter. And I think that concludes my comments. Unless you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
I have a question, Brandon.
Sure.
So we have a subdivision going directly to the north of this one, currently being developed, right?
To the north of this?
Yeah. So right along Mountain Road, right along the canal road there, which you're talking, if you just keep going to the northwest, isn't that being developed by, I can't remember his name. I believe there's a development going in there, right?
On the northern end of, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's the same phase of, a different phase of this same.
Right. I just want to know what the fencing requirements were there. I mean, I think it would be silly to have an inconsistent fence.
Can you scroll down, Lynn, so that I can see the top of lot 8? Sorry, other direction. So I believe what was required was, my best memory is that there was a fence required along the eastern property lines of lots 706 and any other that bordered the canal. I'm virtually certain of that, but I can't say for sure.
It'd be, the reason I'd like to know that is if we required a specific fence, say we required vinyl,
yeah,
I'd want a consistent look here. So I think any motion with fencing should include that it needs to be consistent with what that fence is. And what if there is no fence there? Fencing requirement on that, then I would suggest the same be pertained to this.
Yeah, by ordinance, I don't think we can require a specific type of fence.
Okay.
So we would have, unless the developer volunteered and said, I'm building such and such, then we can ask that it match. But by ordinance, just simply like the same with the ordinance, we can't require them to extend the fence to Mountain Road. We're looking specifically within the borders of this plat.
Okay.
It would be nice and convenient if they'd extend that fence, but they're under no obligation to do so.
Well, I'd like to discuss that when we come to discussion. I think I disagree with that also.
So
I'll explain that one later.
I guess a helpful piece of information may be that the ordinance specifies certain materials that can be used, and then leaves open the option of or other solid material fence, I believe is how it's stated. So I think if I understand Commissioner Mason, he's saying we can't require it based on what's to the north, but the ordinance itself does give some criteria that allows.
I just wanted to have a consistent wording at least, so we have the best chance possible of having, right? I mean, you don't want a black wrought iron fence and then all of a sudden you switch to a chain link, right? Or something. I mean, I just think that would look tacky. Because I'm looking at this from the perception of the average user in the community who walks that and jogs and bikes and it's heavily used, right? And I think we have an opportunity to make that look nice.
So flip that around, Brandon, and if let's say it's chain link fence above there and the guy who buys lot 801 wants a wrought iron fence around his yard, then that's his prerogative to do that. So
okay, fair enough. And you would have to use chain link, wouldn't you? How I feel about that.
I would imagine that it's chain link. That's what a lot of it is up and down that canal. But
yeah.
So anyway, I guess we'll give a chance for. I saw that Tyler's in the meeting tonight. I don't know if he's representing the owner. Give a chance for the applicant to speak, and then we can discuss or ask some questions there. Is there any other questions for Brandon Bell before we invite the applicant in? Okay. Is the applicant with us, or I noticed that Tyler, are you representing tonight? Tyler with Gardner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Orloff was supposed to be on as well, but it doesn't sound like he's present.
He's not.
Okay. So I guess I'll answer any questions or comments specifically on the fence. I know Orloff intends to do a nice fence. We've talked about several different things there along the canal. And it certainly will be a consistent fence that he installs prior to selling the lots. So I'm not sure exactly what that is, but he's talked about one thing in particular, kind of a really nice rock fence. But he intends to do something there that is nice and presentable.
Do you have any idea for his appetite to extend that fence?
I don't think he would have too much of a opposition to that. I know he doesn't want to cut off access to those lots. I know he can probably access those from the new street. So he's probably willing, if the city were to ask that, even though it's not required, he's probably willing to do that just for that consistency.
I'd like to earmark that point for when we discuss it, because I actually object to that, I think.
The other thing I was just going to mention is that all of these utilities are in. I haven't been up there to see if it was paved, but all the underground utilities and curb gutter were in the last time I was up there a couple weeks ago. So it's pretty far along as far as that goes. So.
Yeah, I think only thing concerning the plat, Tyler, is that, I'm sure you're being brought up to speed with the staff report. In North Ogden, we only want that public utility easement along the fronts of the lots. Okay. And then if there is a utility that needs it on a side or rear, then we have you do it with the plat. But otherwise, they can just have them off the plat, and it relieves a lot of stress of people combining lots in the future.
Yeah, if they do that. Okay.
Noted. So promote that to the other cities when you do that. That would be a good universal change.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Thanks, Tyler.
Yep, you're welcome.
Commissioners, discussion. I guess before we open discussion, we do have the opportunity. Does any attendees have a comment on this subdivision tonight? I did say we'd let them comment.
I don't see any hands.
Okay.
You've got Rob
raising his hand
up. You've got Rob Scott putting his hand
Thomas,
up.
do you want to allow Rob Scott?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Rob.
Chair, just a reminder that that fence that goes along the canal, there would be no prohibition from allowing a private gate to access the trail from each of those individual lots. That would be up to them, of course.
Okay.
Lynn, could you scroll down just a little on this document? And there you go. Perfect. If I may address the issue of the fence, my concern with extending it is right now, if you take and maybe Lynn, if you hovered your mouse right over where the mountain road meets the canal road, right there. I'm pretty right there, and then stop at the bottom. Okay, right there. I'm pretty familiar with this area as I run along Canal Road, and I think many people do. Right now, there's a big bush that's right there where the mouse is hovering, and it creates a little bit of a sight hazard for as you run off Canal Road and onto Mountain Road. I'm a little concerned that a fence would just continue a sight hazard there. So for the same reason, I don't think we want fences abutting right up to our street corners and stuff. I don't know why we'd extend a fence that would create a sight hazard here. I'm in favor of a fence covering part of lot 901, but not extending all the way to Mountain Road. I think that would just create a sight hazard. Although I guess once that lot is developed, I guess it would be the prerogative of the lot owner to do the same. But you do have a place there where you have foot traffic that butts right up to a highway, and I just want to make that as safe as possible.
My guess is, Brandon, is where the property line and the canal road meet, the Mountain Road property line is probably west of where you're thinking it is with the bush, because that road isn't a fully developed road, if I'm remembering right, as Mountain Road. So
I've got a picture of it on my screen. I could show you guys.
that
I don't know if I can share my screen.
that trail probably comes 10 feet into the right of way for Mountain Road before it meets the asphalt where you're thinking. I don't know that, but being
Well, if
that's
that
not a
fence goes
developed
right up
road,
to the asphalt, I think we've made a site hazard for, not for cars,
Yeah.
but for pedestrians and cars. And I think that would be a bad move. I think that needs to stay 10 feet off the asphalt.
So,
And so I have no issues with accessibility because obviously these guys can get to their lot from the front of their.
yeah.
So I don't want to get access to 1375.
Like I say, it's, you know, if there's the recommendation from the city, if they want to put the fence along there, I don't mind, you know, along the canal there, but by no means would I suggest that we require it as it is off the plat that we're approving tonight. And it would come under the ordinance when those remainder parcels become their own development and be required at that time. So it makes sense if they want to do it, but by no means would it come down as a requirement from, at least the way I view it. So, I mean, and speaking for Orlif, you know, as many developments he's done in the city, he always is willing to go above and beyond most developers' opinions and things in favor for a nice city and a nice community. So I feel totally comfortable leaving it in his care, deciding what he'd like to do.
I agree with that.
Any other discussion?
I agree with that as well. To not require it tonight, just leave it up to the developer and when we address that phase of development.
I think it would be prudent if we make a recommendation that he look at that, you know, at extending the fence.
But not require it.
But not requiring it, yeah. For the reasons that Eric stated, I agree with that.
Right.
Sounds like the makings of a motion.
Can I make another comment regarding that?
Yeah.
Remember I don't know if it was last meeting or the meeting before, we had a discussion about site triangles. And this is something that we can pass along to Lauren as he incorporates his, he's going to be developing a set of standards on site triangles. That's exactly what we're talking about here. And I think that there is a solution that would provide for safety from the standpoint of the people who might be on the trail as well as the traveling motorists, and also provide safety from the standpoint of ensuring that small children or others don't have direct access to the canal. So.
Yeah, maybe pass that along, and then we could probably Lauren could probably do an aerial over this of where property lines relate to true asphalt and see, you know, that would come into apply as Mountain Road gets completed. But if they fence it to property line right now, that who knows? I have no idea. Guessing it could be 15 or 20 feet away from asphalt for all I know. And the issue doesn't come up until that is fully developed. But
and the site triangles exist throughout for all where Canal Road goes through all North Ogden. Anytime Canal Road crosses a road, there's a site hazard. Generally, there's a site hazard there. I mean, you probably all driven down 1050 and haven't seen someone just come off the trail, and you have about 3 feet before they're supposed to cross the road. And so if we are going to address that, and that's not to this motion, but you know, we may want to look at pedestrian site triangles as well.
okay.
I would like to propose a motion that we approve. We have final approval to this item. I don't have the item in front of me, with the conditions as listed in the staff report, minus the extension of the fence onto lot 901, and encourage the developer instead to pursue a fence that is both congruent with the fence in the neighboring subdivision and one that would extend into lot 901.
Just if I could ask one question, I believe you referenced the conditions in the staff report, Mason, Commissioner Mason. Okay.
So
Sorry, I mixed up my words.
I'm good.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah, Brandon, was that a question to me? Because I did reference the staff report, the conditions in the staff report.
Okay.
Yeah, did you want me to clarify that?
Just did.
Yeah, I think the wording that you had at the end, Commissioner Mason, about the fencing along lot 901, in the staff report, there is some good wording on the second or the third bullet on the fencing. It says adding a fence all the way to Mountain Road along the canal is preferred for safety reasons. Is that sufficient, or would you just like
I can
to?
amend my motion to that. I'm okay with that.
Okay. I'll second.
Although I would like some wording in there to encourage the safety of not just keeping a barrier between the subdivision and the water, but also the safety issue of the sight of the pedestrians as well. So I think both those two things need to be considered. And I do think there's a solution, and I agree with Eric that I think Orloff could find it. And it should be left up to his creativity there. So would you like to amend my motion to include the wording in the staff report with the addition of the safety of the site triangle that's created?
Sure, that sounds great.
Okay.
I'll second.
Wow, what did we second?
Your motion,
So
the
we got
amendment.
we got a motion of approval for final subdivision 2019-14 final approval for the Northampton subdivision with the staff report with the wording in there preferred that the fence be extended along the canal to Mountain Road, but not required. And with the applicant looking at that as both a safety concern, both with foot traffic on the Mountain Road and for the canal.
That was
Does that
very well
cover?
restated. Yes, that's
Okay.
my motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right. Commissioner Nancaro,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Waite,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, well, legislative item number 9, Zone Text Amendment 2018-3, Sensitive Lands Amendment Update. Presenter Rob Scott.
Thanks, commissioners. This is a project that I have been able to devote some time to off and on over the last year. And I've actually been able to carve out some time to do some additional work with respect to this. And one of my commitments is that I wanted to make sure that this was done as, at the very least, as part of our land use code update. So for those of you who are new on the commission, we have a chapter 25, I believe it is, that talks about, let's see here, development constraints, 11-25. And it is about a page long, and it addresses the activities that need to be studied as part of the potential geologic hazards and those types of things in the community. So one of my concerns has been that all along that this particular chapter is so general that it leaves an awful lot to I'm not sure quite what the right word is. It's certainly not a whim or something like that. I mean, there's specific detailed studies that are required, but there are no standards as to what should be contained in those studies. So when we get an upcoming meeting where we don't have a lot of items on the agenda, I'll be putting this on for discussion. So it's a very quick update, but that was the idea, was to let you know that I am working on this, and it's something that ties right into our discussion with respect to the North Cove and the circumstances that are a part of that major development, some 200 acres on our hillside. So that's it. Any comments or questions or whatever, I'll be happy to try and respond.
Rob, does that refer to the study that was done back when the cove was originally approved? I know there was a study done to determine where the debris flow and avalanche stuff all need to be located. Is that all kind of incongruent with all the sensitive land ordinance stuff?
It is. It doesn't specifically identify that specific study in the ordinance, but what it does do is it allows for people to rely on existing information, so they don't have to necessarily reinvent a wheel. If we've got detailed information already, then they can rely on that information to satisfy the specific requirements. May end up being an update or something like that.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion or questions for Rob? All right. Item number 10, remarks from planning commissioners. Anything from commissioners? Come on, Brandon.
Bill? I got nothing.
All right. I'll just by way of information, Dawn and myself are part of the general plan steering committee. And we, with our meeting that was, can't remember if it was last week, Dawn, or was it 2 weeks ago, but it seems like the committee is kind of trying to redo the whole general plan as far as it concerns with Washington Boulevard, downtown, and all the zoning with the city. And it feels like what we've been doing for the last 5 years, they want to redo in the next 6 months. So but maybe just kind of see if there's something that comes up. The steering committee wanted to propose to the city council that there was a moratorium put along Washington Boulevard for businesses and new development along there till they can figure out what we want that to be. I kind of stood in strong opposition of that last week and tried to get them to steer otherwise because of my feelings of what we've done as a commission for years trying to figure that out, and felt like they're not going to do it in 6 months, and we don't want to have a negative reaction to potential businesses coming to North Ogden by saying we're going to put a moratorium out there. I just kind of wondered what the rest of the commissioners' thoughts were about stuff like that, to know what kind of stand we'd like to fill, saying, do we want that? I mean, I feel like we've tried to define Washington Boulevard and what we would want there as a streetscape, the nodes with the businesses and the walkability in our general plan already. Anyway, I don't know if you can define what I'm trying to say a little better, Dawn, but our feelings were kind of like they're trying to redo what we've done in the last 5 years and end up with the same thing.
It was kind of interesting because everybody was talking, there were several people on the steering committee that have been talking about, pretty much starting over. I do have to admit they do have some basis for some of it. not all of it, but some basis, because our last general plan, the form-based code was so embedded in the everything on Washington Boulevard. So I see that, and so some of the talk, and I've talked to the co-chairs a couple times since about it. They've had questions for me from the Planning Commission. And one of the things we're looking at is possibly going back and looking at the form-based code and seeing which specific elements were most attractive and working those into an actual the master plan. But right now, yeah, when we killed the form-based code, it kind of gutted the master plan. And I think there was a great deal of frustration. The other thing that I'm hearing that's frustrating the people who are working on it is they're having a hard time making sense out of it, because it is a really big document. And so it's really hard for people to sort through it. So anyway, and John has talked about that, and John can address it a little bit more about kind of trying to cut some of the fluff out of it. But yeah, the committee is talking to them. That is one of their objectives, is to kind of get through several of these key items. Downtown, that downtown definition is one item. The second item is what John has been calling the great big yellow blob, which is all of the, almost all of North Ogden is zoned the same, even though it isn't. So trying to address and define some of the high density areas and separate those from some of the less dense areas, or where we would like high density to go and where we want to maintain low density or open space. Because that was never addressed. We spent so much time with the last general plan committee that it's almost like it's the moth to the fire. Everybody wants to redefine Mountain Road or Washington Boulevard, yet 98% of the city is not being addressed. So yeah, talking a little bit more, I see some of the frustration from the people who are working on it. I was really worried though. I was total agreement with you, Eric, when they talked, because when they were wanted to put moratorium on everything, and then some of the things that were said, they were upset on the committee. They were upset because of the car wash. They were upset because of the proposed 7-Eleven. They were upset because of those condos or townhouses that went in just north of the cannery. They said none of this was agreed to with the last general plan, and they were actually right, but they weren't, because there was never anything put in place to prevent that. So yeah, it's kind of a complicated work in progress. So I'm not sure I don't know whether that helps or not.
Well, no, yeah, I think it does. Just, I guess, bring the other commissioners a little bit up to speed, kind of what's happening there. And obviously, whatever they recommend is going to come to the Planning Commission. And as we kind of define things in that steering committee, it may not hurt if other commissioners have time to attend, one of the upcoming meetings, wherever, just to kind of hear what's going on in that. So we're more familiar with it as we get to it as the Planning Commission, is what's proposed to us. But
yeah, that'd be great if we get as many people, much of the Planning Commission there as possible, because some of the stuff we're going from memory. Why were some of the things done that were done when this was put together? Was it 4 years or 5 years ago? And how come what we've seen develop in the last 5 years doesn't look much like what the general plan said? Oh, the other thing that's come out of it too is there's a process called vesting the general plan that's been talked about. And by that, vested general plan. I don't know the details. John, again, would know that and could address a lot more of that. But it makes it much harder for each elected city council to, say, well, I don't like that. I want to do this. Or I don't think it should have been done that way. We should do it this way. This is what I like. And so it makes it harder for people to put their personal thumbprint on development. Kind of locks in the general plan and makes it a little bit more difficult to modify. So that is one of the directions everybody is kind of, most of the people are leaning toward.
Okay, well, any other comments from planning commissioners?
Is the schedule for that steering committee posted someplace?
Yeah, I think usually, isn't it, Lynn, on the calendar, the same place where we get our agendas?
Yeah, you can just go to northogdencity.com and click on meetings and agendas.
Okay.
And you'll find the general plan meetings, and you can look at any of their packet items or their minutes.
Right. And you're still doing that through Zoom?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
And I think we're, what is it? The second
It's
Wednesday?
It's the fourth Wednesday.
Fourth Wednesday. Yeah, okay.
So it's the Wednesday after our second planning commission meeting of the month.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, any other comments? All right. City planner, Rob, Brandon, do you have anything for us?
I do have one item, and that is that we have had, staff has had the opportunity to go to a number of informative presentations on various topics, including housing and design, et cetera. And some of these, I think it would be, if we get a planning commission meeting that has a fairly light agenda, we would like to start putting some of those items on there for your consideration, especially as we proceed to work towards the updating of our zoning and subdivision ordinances. And certainly as the discussion you just had relative to the general plan, et cetera, all of those kinds of things, I think they fit right in with that. So just be aware that we will try to look for opportunities to provide that training opportunity for the planning commission as well. That's all I have. I don't know if Brandon or John has something or not, or Evan.
So I was just going to mention in relation to the general plan steering committee that in the conversations that I've been having with the co-chairs and with committee members, we're really looking at trying to create the definitions that will govern the city. So, one of the terms that's been thrown around quite a bit in the city for the past 5 years is walkability. And we're trying to just further define and refine that definition so that it's clear to everybody what that means, and that type of stuff. So that's one of the reasons that that document will come as a recommendation to this group. And we're hoping that through the process, we can eliminate some of the confusion, because if we can eliminate the confusion, then we can identify those goals and those future aspirations for the community. So that's it.
Yeah, I think that'll be a very good thing to come out of that committee. It's good to be able to spend that time to further define anything we can to help with applicants or people coming through. So anything else?
I'll just echo, I guess, or support what Rob was saying about these training opportunities. I've watched a few webinars, and it's been very interesting. I think there's a lot that we can gain a lot we can learn together. And it's nice that we have electronic resources and inexpensive ways of getting this training that will, I feel like it's really helpful that, you know, as we're making decisions about the future development in North Ogden. So I really like that idea.
All right. John, anything else from you?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, that concludes our meeting. A motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second for adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you in a couple weeks.
Good night, Al.
All right.